lovely humans, and welcome back to my channel. I'm so excited because today's video, we are going to be kicking off a full week series. I am not kidding you guys. We have 5 videos planned for this week solely around this subject. Can you tell I'm really excited about it? I've literally never done a 5 video week ever unless it's Vlogmas, okay? Vlogmas doesn't count. Vlogmas is in its own category. If you're new here and you just randomly happen upon this title, hi, thank you so much for clicking on this. My name's JamieWolfer. I'm a wedding planner and I also do content creation. This is like my own little lifestyle corner of the internet. And I have hosted Thanksgiving for the last, I'm pretty sure, close to 10 years. And let me tell you, not all of them are great. None of them are great. But I feel like I've finally reached the point where I can nail this day so successfully. This comes from a history of helping my mom because she hosted it previously before I started hosting it, and then, learning the ins and outs of it on my own and learning how to cook and all those fun things over the past, decade or so, and my experience as a wedding planner. I now know how to host things a heck of a lot better than I did 10 years ago. I'll tell you that right now. So in this series of 5 videos, here's what that's going to look like. Today's video is going to be talking all about the timeline and the prep, the things that you can be doing before the big day to make it go so much easier. A lot of times in the past, I've left everything to the very last minute and then just been so stressed out and never got to enjoy the day with my family and friends or whomever we had over. So I've learned all the hacks and all the things you can get done ahead of time, but I know that's not practical for everybody. Tomorrow, I'm going to be posting a cook with me video, including 3 different recipes that you can use as sides. And then on Wednesday, we're going to release a podcast all about all of my best tips and tricks for hosting a successful Thanksgiving. Because I feel like we just need to sit down. That one's a little bit more conversational. We can have a little bit more story time moments with that one. Thursday, we're going to be releasing 3 more sides. And Friday, we will have the bird and the gravy. Is this ambitious? Yes. Yes, it is. Am I cooking a turkey the first week of November? Yes. Yes, I am. I'm so glad you asked. Thank you for noticing. But I've been wanting to make this series for years. And I was like, you know what? This is going to be the year. This is going to be the year that I do it. So if you are planning your first Thanksgiving, or you're just done being stressed out around this stinking holiday, jump on down there and hit subscribe because you don't want to miss any of the videos that I'm putting out this week. In addition to that, I've actually turned this into an entire Thanksgiving meal planner, which has everything. And I mean everything. It has every single recipe that we're going over in all of these videos. It also has all of the schedules typed out for you so you know exactly when you need to start cooking the bird and cooking the sides. And all of this, the entire menu planner, is based off of only having 1 oven and 4 burners, because I know so many people, they don't have double ovens. They don't have extra space. We're lucky. We have a Traeger, which means we get to smoke things every once in a while, and a flat top. So if we ever wanted to get fancy, we've got multiple things we can use. But that's not the case for everybody. And that hasn't always been the case for us. So I put together the perfect schedule for your day of cooking to make sure that everything is hot and ready to go at your mealtime, using 1 oven and 4 burners. So if you want to go ahead and order that, I will leave it linked right up here and down in the description box. I'm keeping it super, super cheap for you guys. I know we are all balling on a budget, especially this time of year, but also, as I'm sure you know, a lot of thought, a lot of work, and a lot of experience went into this. So we're going to charge a little something for it because it is worth every single penny. If you want to have a stress-free turkey day, you absolutely need this meal planner. And in fact, today's video is based on a couple pages directly out of this meal planner. So I'm basically going to give you all of the information in these videos if you want them. You don't have to purchase the planner if you're a really good note taker. I just know that I love having physical copies in front of me when I'm cooking, okay? I don't want to be scrubbing back and forth through a video. Although those are great, I want to learn it once and then just have a paper to refer to in front of myself. So most people tend to fall into 2 different camps. They either have the room and or this brain space and or energy to make things ahead of time, or they don't. Because sometimes you can actually make some of the sides and even the turkey ahead of time if you really, really want to. But this requires a ton of fridge space. And I mean a lot. Like if you're making 9x13 pans, all the recipes in the Thanksgiving meal planner are for 8 people. You can of course adjust that. Oh, there's a serving size calculator in there as well. That also links to a functional calculator on a Google spreadsheet if you want to go actually add in the numbers so you can see how much per person you need to purchase. So let's say you try the honey thyme glazed carrots that my grandfather said reminded him of his childhood and were some of the best carrots he's ever had in his entire life and went back for thirds. He's since passed, but we continue to carry on that legacy. This calculator will show you exactly how many pounds of carrots you need to purchase in order to feed your guest count or your head count. Sorry, I'm still a wedding planner. So I'll say guest count, but it's head count. I guess both work. Now, when it comes to making it ahead versus making it day of, there are a lot of pros and cons for both of those. If you have the fridge space, like we have a second fridge, we have goats that we milk, so we call it our milk fridge. My husband still tries to call it his beer fridge, but we all know that it's literally full of gallons of goat milk. If we can, I can actually use a lot of that and either make yogurt or goat cheese or something to make a bunch of space in there really, really quickly. But basically, some people have the luxury of a secondary fridge and other people don't. If you don't, some of these items like stuffing or dressing, technically you're supposed to call it dressing if you're not stuffing a bird. I still call it stuffing regularly, but my mom corrects me. She's like, it's dressing. If it's not a bird, it's dressing. That's not what she sounds like. That's just how I made it sound. Those are all shelf-stable ingredients. So if you were to make those ahead, they would then take up fridge or freezer space that you might need for other things, like the rest of your food that you live off of. All to say, there's no real right or wrong answer for how you do this. It just depends on what you have in front of you and how much you can make this space work. In addition to a second fridge, if you have more than one oven, you can totally change the schedule. But again, I'm trying to keep the schedule pretty bare bones here because most people are only dealing with a single oven. So let's go ahead and take a look at the Thanksgiving week of schedule. Here's how I like to do things. None of this needs to be fixed, okay? You can obviously move any of this around. I'm not your overlord. Do what you want with it. This is just the process that works best for me personally and my family on our rhythm. On Sunday, I will take my bird out of the freezer. Usually it's about a 15 to 17, 18 pound bird, mostly because if I go any bigger, it won't really fit well in my oven or in my like turkey roasting pan, which you probably need one of those. I'm sure there's a way to get around having one of those, but I personally love having one and I think it makes a lot of sense. But turkeys take a long time to defrost in the fridge. In fact, it takes about a day for every 4 to 5 pounds to defrost a turkey. So if you have a 15-pound bird, it's going to take 3 days, probably at a minimum, to defrost your bird. So here's the fridge space thing that we were talking about earlier. That makes things a little bit complicated. And as an aside, but something I probably should have said earlier, the whole reason I do this is obviously I mentioned being stress-free, but also so all of your food is done at the same time. Do you know what kind of witchcraft it takes to make sure that your food is done all at the same time? If you ever served a meal of this magnitude, you know that's really, really difficult to do. So that's what the beauty of this schedule is. And that's why we have a week-long schedule as well to help you kind of count backwards from the actual mealtime and to make sure everything's ready at that time. And I mentioned it right here because the main issue that people run into is the turkey not being ready on time because it hasn't had enough time to defrost. So don't skimp on this. There are ways that you can defrost a turkey faster. They recommend soaking it in cold water as long as you switch out the cold water every 30 minutes. And for every 30 minutes defrosting in the water, it defrosts about a pound of the bird. So again, if you're looking at a 15-pound bird, you're looking at about 7.5 hours of defrosting, but that's a lot of changing out the water. USDA suggests never defrosting your turkey on the counter or like in any other capacity. Have I done that? I am not willing to admit that out loud. But I will say, if you have a cooler, it's kept away from children and the dogs, and you check on it frequently, I'm just saying, don't come for me. So first, let's take a look at the make-ahead schedule. So the one that you can like prep sides earlier in the week if you have the fridge space. On Monday, I want you to make a handful of sides and chop the vegetables for the rest. Mashed potatoes and green bean casserole actually, in my opinion, tend to taste better after they sit for a little bit. So if you get those done on Monday and then you cover them up and toss them in the fridge, you are good to go. You could also make the gravy and the cranberry sauce at this point too, because the cranberry sauce for sure gets better as it sits. I know this is a controversial take because so many people like to use the drippings for it, but I, in my heart of hearts, want to sit my happy rear down on Thanksgiving and not be standing the whole time. So anything I can make ahead, I will. If that means that we end up making a gravy from the drippings later, fine. But if I have the time to do it earlier, I'm going to do it. So remember, this is on Monday, but of course, if you have a job, you can like move stuff around, do some of it on Tuesday, whatever. I'm also chopping the celery and the onions for the stuffing or the dressing. I can also chop the onions for the lemon pepper asparagus. Probably wouldn't trim the asparagus because those are easy to chop up and just toss together on the day of. It's the ones that require a longer cooking time, like the casserole and the mashed potatoes, that actually reheat beautifully in the oven that we can get done earlier. Tuesday, I try to focus on cleaning the house. Of course, if you can do any lead up to this and like get more done even more ahead of time, that's glorious. And yes, I have 2 teenage daughters and my husband's really helpful. I have a 7-year-old son, and the 18-month-old is kind of useless when it comes to cleaning. In fact, she's like counterintuitive. If that term even works here, you get what I'm saying. But if we all go ham on the house, we could probably have it looking pretty snazzy in 3 hours. We can go from like disaster to snazzy in 3 hours. So I personally like to make sure my house is feeling great. Remember, I made a disaster of the kitchen on Monday. We're cleaning like crazy on Tuesday. So on Wednesday, all I have to do is worry about the bird and the final touches. So in the morning on Wednesday, I will apply the dry brine, which you'll see in the turkey recipe later this week or in the meal planner if you choose to purchase that. Then set out all of my serving dishes. Now remember, you don't have to have actual actual serving dishes. I just, of course, love hosting, so I have a bunch of different serving dishes for that. My mom taught me this trick. She'd actually place out the bowls for chips or whatever every time we had an event. She would pre-place those out with little slips of paper in them, annotating what dish was supposed to go in them. Let's say I have a specific tray that I want the turkey to go on. I'll just put a Post-it on it that says turkey and set it off to the side, or set it where I want it to be eventually. So that way when it comes to setting out the dishes, or if someone's like, hey, where's the platter for the turkey? I'm like, read the Post-it. Now, of course, I know this is extra. I know a lot of people don't have serving dishes and you don't need to put them in anything overly pretty. But I would recommend having some sort of like serving station where you will be placing whatever dish you're displaying them in. And if you want to, you can dress it up a little bit. In fact, that's what I love to do on Wednesday, is do all of the fun dress up stuff. And I don't mean costumes for me. I mean like setting up the table, putting out the candles. This is, of course, if we're eating inside. Sometimes we don't. Sometimes we eat outside, so I'll set it up the next day. I love setting a pretty table. I'll link my tablescape from last year if you guys want to check it out here. I'm always adding and building onto this. In fact, this year I have my eye on quite a few things. I might do a video next week on Thanksgiving table haul because they're just dreamy. They're just dreamy. I found that these disposable plates, tall disposable plates that technically can be reused if you hand wash them. Shut your mouth. Shut your mouth. Don't worry, I will show you. I won't hold back, I promise, but I need to get them in hand first. And then Thursday comes around and you just follow the schedule. I would read it off to you here in this video, but it's going to come across really complicated. And honestly, it's much better to see in the meal planner anyways. But I'll give you a general guideline, all right? First thing in the morning, I will shape the dinner rolls and leave them to rise for about 2 hours. Oh my gosh, and I completely forgot to mention, I also set up all of the recipes and all the cooking in the oven to be at the same exact temperature. So we calculated out the times that each of these would need to cook at 350 degrees Fahrenheit. So you don't have to be adjusting the temperature or like trying to do the mental math. I did it all for you. It's all done. So after about 2 hours, those are usually risen enough. I will pop them in the oven for 40 minutes or so. And I will also pull out the turkey at this point to kind of warm up and come to room temp just a little bit. Once the rolls are out, the turkey goes in. Now, of course, this varies on the side of the bird you have. It could be 3 hours, it could be 2.5, but you want your turkey to go in first because honestly, we don't mind a long rest time at the very end. Remember, we're working towards that final meal time at the end of the day when you want everything to be served by. So we're working backwards from there. While the turkey's in the oven, I will then assemble all of the dishes that I didn't do earlier in the week. So in this case, it would be the lemon pepper asparagus, the honey thyme glazed carrots, and the dressing. And really, there's very little cooking involved here. This is mostly just a combining of ingredients. I'll sometimes saute the onions a little bit for the lemon pepper asparagus. And obviously, I'll cook up the sausage if you're adding the sausage to your dressing. I almost did it again. And then it's time for the turkey to come out. You bring it out. You can tent it if you want to keep the heat in. But oftentimes people complain about that crispy skin kind of losing its crispiness because you put it in a too moist of an environment. So pick your poison, whatever works best for you. I don't mind leaving mine untented because actually incorporated into the schedule, we have a warm-up plan later. And then all of these side dishes have different cook times. So the first thing you're going to want to do is put the stuffing in first with the foil on. About 10 to 15 minutes later, you're then going to put in 3 of your side dishes: the mashed potatoes, the green bean casserole, and the honey thyme glazed carrots. And at a certain point, you're taking the foil off. So you can see that we're like slowly adding things into the oven according to their appropriate cook time. So they're all done at the same time. And at a certain point, you take the foil off the stuffing to kind of like crisp up the top or whatever. So ding, all the sides are done. They all come out of the oven. Meanwhile, this turkey's been resting for about 30-45 minutes, which is absolute perfection. We love to see it. Then you're going to carve it, put it on a platter, the one with the Post-it on it, and put it back into the oven to warm up if it needs it. Also, you can toss your rolls back into the oven to warm up for a little bit as well if you want to serve those hot and toasty. Do you see how well this works? If you work yourself back enough and if you get enough of the vegetable prep or enough of the meal prep done earlier in the week, it makes the day of kind of like this really easy dance. And honestly, this is one of those concepts that's really hard to describe with great accuracy in a video like this. But hopefully that rhythm, that flow was just enough for you to be like, oh, I get it now. Now, let's say you sat through all of that and you're like, that's fantastic, Jamie. I don't have the space in my fridge. I don't have the time in my schedule to do any cooking until the day of. Don't worry. I have a schedule for you as well. Now, there's a lot of similarities between the make ahead option and the one-day cooking option. So I'll touch on those and then I'll really highlight the differences. So on Sunday, you still need to defrost the turkey. You'll still need to make room in your fridge. You don't really have a choice unless you want to be a rebel and put it in a cooler. I didn't tell you to do that. On Monday, you're going to chop all the vegetables. You can even parboil the vegetables that need to be parboiled and then store those in airtight containers if you have the time for that. If you don't, you're just like, nope. Okay, then just cut what you can, okay? Cut the onions, cut the celery, trim the asparagus, but like anything you can trim down day of, do it. We're not really creating in bulk here. We're just getting things organized ahead of time. Tuesday's going to be a lot of the same. focus on the house, getting things ready. Wednesday, focus on the bird, focus on your tablescape, focus on your platters if you have those. And then Thursday, this is game time, baby. So, which basically means instead of having that downtime when you start your rolls, you're going to start to prepare all of your sides. Now, the cook time in the oven for these side dishes do not change. That's why this schedule works so nicely, because it still fits into this perfect time slot. It just means that earlier in the day, you won't have as much relaxing time. You'll be cooking the potatoes, you'll be cooking the carrots if you haven't done that already, you'll be assembling things. Basically all the things that were earlier in the week on the make-ahead schedule. So the rhythm still works out. It doesn't require any more refrigerator space or freezer space to pull it off. It just means that you are probably getting a lot more work done on the actual day, which surprises nobody. Obviously, if you can't do it earlier, you could do it the day of. I hope within the core of my being that this made sense. The biggest tip I can give you is figure out that mealtime and work backwards, not only for the day of, but for the entire week. And if you don't want to sit down and figure that out, don't worry, Boo Bear, I already did it for you. If you want to get the Thanksgiving meal planner, I will leave it right here. It's also going to be linked down in the description box below. This is something I get really passionate about, which means I usually talk really fast about it. So hopefully this left you feeling more assured and less overwhelmed. Hosting your first Thanksgiving meal can feel stressful. Hosting any sort of event or gathering, whether you're newlywed or it's just your turn on the roster, can feel like a lot. But I'm here to tell you it does not have to be stressful. If you do just a little bit of planning ahead of time, your day is going to be so much more seamless. That's all we have for today's video, guys. I hope you liked it. Be sure to jump on down there and hit subscribe. You don't want to miss all of the recipe videos that I'm bragging about. And I'm telling you, not all of them are traditional, because some traditional sides for Thanksgiving suck. Who wants marshmallows on baby food? I will die on this hill. Like, I'm so glad that you like it. I'm so yum. For me, personally, like focusing on actual flavor. Sorry. I won't hate on yams the whole time, I promise. And color. I think color on the plate is really important. That's why I picked a couple of specific recipes that are tried and true in our family and definitely home runs every single time. And until next time, bye, guys.